Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the League of Ripon voters of the of the Ripon area and our candidate forum for this evening. My name is Marty Farrell. I'm representing the Ripon area voters, League of Women Voters tonight. Cal Edwards is also representing the League. He will be our timekeeper for today's candidate forum. This is a forum for the candidates in the primary election for the candidates for the Ripon City Council, 4th District. Because there are 3 candidates for the one position, there will be a primary election, and that will be held on Tuesday, February 15th. At that time, the 2 candidates with the most votes will go on, and then will face each other in the general election on Tuesday, April 15th. The 3 candidates we have with us this evening are, from my left, Ben Morrison, Doug Iverson, and Mike Biscalgen. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government and works to increase understanding of major public policy issues. It also does attempt to influence public policy through education and nonpartisan advocacy. This year represents the 60th anniversary of the founding of the League of Women Voters of the Ripon area. The League of Women Voters of the United States was founded in 1920 by Carrie Chapman Catt, who was born in Ripon, Wisconsin. Tonight's candidate forum is being shown live on the City of Ripon cable TV station, which you know if you are currently watching it, or a replay of it. But it will also be posted to the city's YouTube streaming service later this evening, and will be available for viewing on that format starting later tonight or early tomorrow. Now, to begin our format this evening, we will have opening statements limited to 2 minutes by each of the 3 candidates. Following that, we have a number of questions that have been submitted and screened in advance, and each of those will be posed to each of the candidates. They will have 2 minutes to respond to each of those questions. And then when all the questions have been answered, we will have closing statements by each candidate, which will be limited to 1 minute. We thank the candidates for coming this evening. Before we begin, I'd just like to remind the viewers that we have 2 additional forums scheduled. One will be on March 17th, also a Thursday. That will feature the candidates for the Fond du Lac County Board District 1 election. Again, Thursday, March 17th. And then for the general election on April 5th, all the Ripon City Council candidates will have a forum, and that will be on Thursday, March 24th. Before we began this evening, we did draw straws for the order that we will start with the opening statements, and Doug Iverson drew the number 1 position, so he will be the first to give his 2-minute opening statement. That will be followed by Mike Biscalgen in second place, and Ben Morrison then will present his opening statement. Mr. Iverson, 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Doug Iverson, and I believe many of you remember that I represented District 4 on the City Council from 2016 to 2020. You may also remember me from my unsuccessful campaign for Lakeside Municipal Court Judge, which encompassed 15 municipalities over 2 counties. I lost by a mere 540 some votes. If they had shifted that way, I would be a Lakeside Municipal Court Judge. The reason I bring that up is to remind you of all the relationships I built doing that, the doors I knocked on, the people I talked with while I was doing that. I'm very much interested in what people think and what they feel should be done. Although I've not been on the council since 2020, I continue to be involved in local government as a member of the City Plan Commission and as a member of the Ripon Public Library Board of Directors. I also served as a member of the Ripon Area Fire District Board of Directors when I was on the council. As a former attorney, I believe I have the analytic abilities to understand the complex nature of public finance like tax increment finance districts in the city budget. I went through 4 budget cycles with the city and the fire district. I've been through 6 budget cycles with the library. In 2016, when the paper asked me why I wanted to be on the council, I told them that I did not want the city to be involved in another Boca Grande. My first priority, if I'm elected to the council, is to guard the city from making poor financial decisions, but instead make good decisions that benefit the residents of the city. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Biscalgen.
I'm Mike Boscaljon, and I'm here. My wife and I moved to Ripon 3 years ago. My wife is a graduate of Ripon College, and so we decided to move from where we were living in North Carolina. We picked Ripon, and we couldn't be happier to be living in Ripon and supporting our family and sending our kids to school here. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to run for city council. When Al Schrader decided he was not going to run for re-election, I saw it as my opportunity to step in and serve this community that I love so much. Because my kids are the future of this town, and I want to make sure that this city is around for them and is supported for them. My children are 6, they attend Ripon schools. I want to see both of them succeed through in Ripon schools. I want to see this city continue to grow, to bring affordable housing, to make sure our roads are plowed, to grow the library, to make sure that our infrastructure is kept up. I also love what is happening in our downtown and want to continue to see that grow and flourish and prosper. I love the city, and I am so happy and excited to serve this city. Thank you very much.
Mr. Morrison.
First and foremost, thank you to the League of Women Voters for allowing us to have this forum tonight, and I do appreciate it. To the good people of Ripon, Wisconsin, I moved here almost 5 years ago, and I've come to love the city. I love what it has offered myself and my family. I have two wonderful kids, a grandchild now who will be going through the Ripon school system. We moved here because we love it. We love the allure of the small city. We love the openness and the friendliness of the city. I've previously ran on council and served for you for almost a year, and I believe I fought for you, and I kept transparency fiscally. I kept transparency whenever it was requested and whenever it was needed, which is all the time. I would hope that I can garner your vote because I am here to work for you, and I am here to do the hard work and do whatever is necessary to keep the city afloat. I'm also here to address issues when they arise, but I also want to ensure that we address issues before they become an issue, which I think is a massive point in this city. So with that being said, I'd like to get this forum underway. You guys have a wonderful night, and thanks very much for watching. God bless all of you.
All right, thank you all very much for those opening statements. Now we'll go to the questions that have been submitted. And the first one is this, and we will start with Mr. Morrison, followed by Mr. Boscaljon, and then Mr. Iverson, in that order, reversing the order from the opening statements. If you are elected to office in April and serving on the city council, what do you think the #1 priority issue for the council should be at that time?
At this point in time, we need to, first and foremost, thank you very much for the question. We need to address the water issue in the city. We are about to undertake a $10 million infrastructure issue within the city due to our water. And I believe we need new wells. We need to catch up with the times, and that's got to be handled. So that's got to be the first thing that needs to be prioritized and handled immediately.
All right, thank you.
Sir.
I'm sorry if I'm,
Boscaljon.
Boscaljon, thank you.
I definitely agree. I think infrastructure is a big thing that Ripon is going to need to tackle right away in the council, but it's an ongoing issue that I think the infrastructure, roads, the water, how we maintain and monitor our water is definitely something that is a big issue, and I think something that's definitely going to need to be tackled.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
Well, of course, the water needs to be addressed. There hasn't been a rate increase of any kind for like a decade. And there was a small rate increase in 2017 that I kind of prodded the head of the water department then to undertake. And I never fully understood why things were the way they are. When I would ask a question, they would just tell me, well, it will work out. When that was never really good enough for me. So I think one of the main things is, and we have a lot of new people coming on board with new city administrator. We have a new city clerk here in a few months. We have a new assistant city administrator, kind of financial controller. I think one of the things that I've come to realize is that some of the people in the city just really weren't very forthcoming. So we need to build a kind of culture of trust with the elder people and the city workers, especially the heads of department, so that they can be forthright and honest with us about when things are kind of a problem. So I think, obviously the roads are always going to be worked on. We have problems with the Jackson Street crossing there by the dam. All those things have to be tackled, and we have to figure out how we're going to finance them. And I think there's a lot of good ways to do that. So I'm going to, keep pushing that stuff forward and, build trust with, in the department and with the city workers. So thank you very much for the question.
All right, thank you. Now our second question will begin with Mr. Boscaljon, and then Mr. Morrison, and then Mr. Iverson, then Mr. Morrison. And that question has to do with workforce development. This is not unique to Ripon, but as we drive around town and also as we talk with major employers, such as Alliance Laundry or Ripon Printers, we find that one of the biggest impediments to their growth is lack of employees. They have empty positions, open positions that they cannot fill. What do you think the city of Ripon's role should be in trying to attract a larger and well-qualified workforce?
I think that's a great question, and as somebody who works for, it's now Walsworth Ripon Printers, I see that every day when I go into work, the amount of vacancies that are open. I think one thing the city can definitely do, and something that I would work towards, would be trying to provide affordable housing for people so that we can have the workers live here and work here. The jobs are here, and we just need the people to be here as well. There's so many people that come in from Oshkosh or Fond du Lac to work, and I think that that's wonderful and it's great. But we also need to provide housing here for those employees so that they can work and live in their own community. Thank you.
Mr. Iverson.
I think really there's not a lot of buildable lots left here in the city. And so I think that growth would have to come either through the expense of the town of Ripon. I mean, we need to expand out. The city's already started the housing study that's going to be done so that we can have a good idea of what we need to do to attract developers into the city and convince them that expensive farmland is worth building on. We need to have the tax credits lined up, and we need to have, there's so much to do. And honestly, the city doesn't really have a lot of money or a lot of power to force this, but we can do what we do is start with a housing study and push it forward and see if we can get something built here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you very much for the time, and thank you very much for the question. To address the issue at hand when we are talking about workforce and workforce development and et cetera, I am lucky enough to actually have been a a candidate to be involved in the workforce development. When I was, during the recession, I would get a job, lose it after 2 months and 3 weeks, and be laid off. So I went to workforce development and actually got myself a career, because the state of Wisconsin has programs set in place to put people through school short-term so that they may actually get a job in their career and have a nice long job, and that's wonderful. But I think it also comes down to, I think our parents and just the people in general cannot be afraid to sometimes tell the kids that, hey, maybe you're not meant for college, but maybe you would be great at working in a factory. And opening those horizons. Industry is always important, and that's the backbone of our city. It's the backbone of our country. And without the workforce, we're kind of dead in the water. So I would really promote with our kids that every avenue is open for you, not just college, but working in factories too. Thank you very much.
All right, and thank you all. Our next question will pose first to Mr. Iverson, then to Mr. Morrison, then to Mr. Boscaljon. And that is, how active a role should the city be playing in economic development? You've mentioned attracting workers, you've mentioned affordable housing. How active a role should the city play? Should the city provide financial incentives to attract workers or to encourage this housing growth that you have said we need?
Okay, well, the question was a little bit ambiguous. You talked about economic growth, you're talking about businesses coming in here, or are you talking about building houses for people to live in? Because they're kind of two different things, because I know the city's very much involved with the Smucker's plant over here that's going to be empty soon. And I know the city's involved with the Kmart over there too. Maybe not for financial, but involved in getting somebody in there. For workforce, for housing, we got to get the study done, and we got to get developers attracted to Ripon. We got to get these people to come here to buy some land and put houses on, or apartments, or condos, or whatever. Then that gets people to live here, and then that helps the businesses have people come to work in them, like the printer, like Seneca Foods, like Whip and Pickle, well, and all these other places in town of small sizes. We need to get the workers here, and we got to get the study done. We got to get the developers attracted to come here, and I think that's the main thing. But the city should be involved as much as possible. I know there's Envision in Fond du Lac County. We've been involved with that. If there's a TID district that money can be used for it, that's great. You can say, this is what we're going to do. If we can create a TID district to help finance this project, that's what the city should do. Every tool the city has, we should use it.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison?
Thank you for the time and thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we're still in the middle of it, and hopefully at the back end of it, of a pandemic that the world has faced. Right now, money's a little tight. People might be a little scared to spend some money, especially when there's a little bit of unknown in the future, and it's understandable. But I think with the city, we all need to work together to entice people to come in here. It's not just council, it's also the people. And that's what we should do. We should work together to bring business in here, clamor about our city, talk about how great it is, and what we can do, and the brightness of our future here. We are a beacon of growth in this county, and I truly see that and truly believe it. And I think if you really want to bring business in here, you have to be willing to work with everybody, you have to be willing to speak with them, and you have to be willing to treat them as honored guests. And in order to do that, it all starts with a conversation. So, and I think I would be more than willing to go ahead and do that for the people. I've always promised them to work hard for you, and that's something I would gladly work hard for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boscaljon?
It's definitely a great question, and it is the question of what really can the city do to help provide economic support for housing, for businesses. And I think that it is the city's role to do their best with their budgets and whatever programs that we can try to apply for to help grow houses and help grow businesses here. So I think it is partly the city to help encourage growth within our city, to have programs available. It's certainly a part of council that I would willing to work hard to figure out and what is available for us to continue to grow business and continue to grow housing and continue to develop our city. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. The next submitted question is somewhat overlaps this, but it's focusing a little more specifically. And Mr. Boscaljon will have you go first, and Mr. Iverson second, and Mr. Morrison third on this one. Sure. But some of the tools for development that the city has are called TID districts or TIF districts and or BID districts. Do you feel you understand how these tools work, and how would you advocate using them going forward to further the interests of the city? TID districts, TIF districts, and or BID districts. Mr. Boscaljon?
As someone who's fairly new to the politics of the city, I am somewhat aware of the TID districts and TIF districts and BID districts. I know we have a very strong BID currently in Ripon. I know at the last council meeting, they actually just moved to dissolve TID 4. And it's definitely something that as a council member, I would want to do research on all of those and figure out what is available for our city and what we can use those districts for to help develop within our city. There's certainly a lot out there for us to learn, and I know that there's a lot of learning for any of us to figure out how to continue to grow our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
Thank you. BID district's a business improvement district, and we have one downtown currently, and it ebbs and flows, but it's on the upswing now. And so the merchants down there, not only do they pay their property tax, they then pay extra into the BID district that then improves the downtown area, like facade grants or small loans, and it pays for snow removal on the sidewalks and the new trees that are being replanted, and it helps make downtown look good. So I know, in fact, the city is, I believe, going to kick that sales tax money from Fond du Lac County to the city. It's going to go downtown this year to really help them out a lot more. Those to beautify it, to help them grow, to help them stay in business downtown. Taxpayer increment finance district is when you take a section of land and you're going to say you have reasons that you're going to do this and that's beyond this, and you're going to cut it out and you're going to borrow some money against it. The developer's going to have developer's agreement that he's going to agree this is what the tax increment's going to be when the project's all done, so that that money can be paid back over a number of years, like 20 or 30 years. And at the end, we're going to have some taxable property that's going to add to the city's bottom line. It's not a great way, but it's very useful in some circumstances, and the city has made use of it. We're using it for downtown. For the old Mapes, I think we're using it, and for the big old building next door that they're turning into condos. So I think I have a very good grasp of TIDs and what the BID does. So thank you for that question.
Mr. Morrison?
Thank you very much for the question. I appreciate the time. So when we hired on our current city administrator, we did so with the intent of trusting that he knew everything about TID, BID, all different kinds of financing. So we put a lot of trust into him. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know everything about the financing part when it comes to BID, when it comes to TID, and what is it that he said? Finance district. But I've always been willing to learn. I've been pretty blessed as well as to have a brother who's a county treasurer who's always been willing to speak with me about it. And that's something more that I'm always trying to learn. But I want to go a step further for the people. I don't just want us to learn about it. I want the people to learn about it too. And I'd be willing to be able to give the access to people to learn it. I would be willing to go online make a Facebook Live page if I have to, just to show people this is what TID financing is, this is what the finance district is, this is what BID is, because I think that's, knowledge is power here. And the more that the people know, the better off we are as a city. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Morrison, and we'll go to Mr. Boscaljon, then we'll go to Mr. Iverson. And the question questioner is interested in is, would you support restoring a code enforcement officer position for the city? And if so, how would you pay for that position?
I think we already have a position in the city where the police can handle it, and I think that's adequate. I don't believe that a code enforcement right now would be the answer. I just think that if, you know, the best way to put it is when we were younger, when we were kids, hey, if something was messed up in your neighbor's yard and you knew that they couldn't handle it, go help them out. You know, and try being a loving neighbor, try being a caring neighbor. But sometimes that can't be done, and sometimes people just aren't willing to do that. So we already have avenues in place to have somebody go down and check it out. And I think right now that's good enough until it's really necessary. And then when that point comes, then we'll handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boscaljon?
I think the idea of having a code enforcement would all depend on what the necessity would be. Does the city need a code enforcement officer, or can we enforce the codes with what we currently have in place? And if it was deemed that it was necessary to have a code enforcement officer, then we would work with the budget and try to work with what we could to see how we could afford that. And that, I think that would be the best way to go, to do the research, to figure out if it's necessary, and then to figure out how we could turn it into the budget if we felt that it was necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
I believe that we have, the police can investigate, but I think we also have Sue Leahy, our building inspector. I think she can do some code enforcement. And I thought that there was someone down at DPW that did it some too. So I think we have the bases covered. I don't think we need somebody. I don't know how we would pay for it. And I would hate to have that person's salary dependent upon the fees collected for enforcing the code. I think that would not be a very wise idea. So I don't really see the need right now. The city has historically worked with people to clean up the mess. I mean, the city spent like a decade arguing with a homeowner on the other side of the city about the poor conditions of the city, of that house, before the city was able to go to court and have that, get a raise repair order, which he was unable to do, and then he threatened city officials over it. And so they worked with someone for 10 years. I mean, I understand it's expensive to go to court to fight this, to do all this. It's best to work with people to try to get them to comply. That's my opinion. I mean, obviously sometimes you gotta go to court. The razor repair for that house, it was terrible. There was animals in people's houses and everything, and the garages next door, it was a mess. It had to all be cleaned up. So I'm really much against, unless, I don't see that we need it, honestly. We can handle what we got. So thank you for the question.
All right, another question, maybe slightly related to that. The questioner wants to know, and we'll start with Mr. Boscaljon, then we'll go to Mr. Morrison, and then Mr. Iverson. And that is, do you support or oppose beautification efforts for the city? And please explain why you favor that or not. Beautification.
I think anything that we can do to attract people to our city, to shop here, to live here, to work here, is always going to be beneficial for our city. Whether that's beautification, benches downtown, flower pots downtown, new signs. I think anything that we can do to attract more people to Ripon is always going to be beneficial for the city. And I would be in support and I would be in favor of helping to continue to beautify this already beautiful city. Thank you.
Mr. Morrison?
Thank you very much for the time, sir. Would I support beautification of the city? I think that's as simple as cutting your lawn, cleaning up the garbage. Maybe people drop something in a road, pick it up, put it in your own garbage. I support it because I think adding to the allure of the city always promotes our city. It would make it a beautiful place even more so and make it even more attractive to people to want to move here. We have a wonderful city that allows us to, where our kids can actually walk to and from different locations and you're not worried about it. Whereas, you know, there's been, I've lived in a couple cities where I was always worried about if my kids were taking walks down the street. I don't want that. I want to keep the city as amazing as possible. And this is already a beautiful city. And Mr. Boscaljon already touched on that, and he is 100% correct. The city is amazing. But it just takes a little bit elbow grease and working together to keep that up there. So I think positive, I will guarantee that we will all work together and we will continue to keep this city beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
Thank you. So about a decade ago, I discovered, when I was on the council, I looked at previous minutes, and I discovered that at one time, more than a decade ago, the city had a beautification committee. And they planted flowers and did stuff all over. And then 2008 came, and the budget crunch came, and the state revenue, the shared revenue from the state got throttled back, and it's still not where it should be because they keep cutting that. We had one. And they planted flowers and did a lot of beautiful things in the city. You know, they didn't have a big budget, but, you know, even $5,000 plants a lot of flowers and some new trees and stuff. So right now, I don't think we have one, but we do in many ways. Like the fees that we pay for the picnic shelters, they made them look nice. To clean them up, fix the plumbing, painted them, that's a beautification effort right there. The bid board for downtown, planting new trees and stuff, that's beautification right there. And, you know, we just have to keep working that through, and I think we can do it. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Now, for this question, Mr. Iverson will go first, Mr. Boscaljon second, Mr. Morrison third. Recently on social media and in the regular media, there have been concerns expressed about whether the city is aggressive enough in enforcing some of its ordinances. For example, people who like to walk for exercise find a number of homeowners do not shovel their walks according to what is supposed to be done by city ordinance. Lawns are not mowed in the manner prescribed by city ordinance. At least these are the complaints. The weed ordinances are not being enforced. What do you think in terms of also parking on the street during nighttime hours during the winter when plowing is necessary? Do you feel the city of Ripon is aggressive enough in enforcing these kinds of ordinances, not aggressive enough, or are they applying them at about the right rate currently, in your opinion? Doug?
Thank you. As I've said already, I don't like using code enforcement. I don't like using a hammer to beat on someone. I get it. Your lawn is long. At some point, the police will come over, measure your lawn, have a little chat with you, and if you don't fix it, the city will come in and mow it for you and bill you well, they'll have someone else come in and mow it, and then you'll get billed for it. I hate doing that. If you have a problem that you can't mow your grass, well, say something. Someone might be able to help you out. I mean, people out there, if you need some help, maybe a neighbor or someone in the neighborhood can mow your grass. If you got a weed bed or something you need to take care of, you know, get someone to help you. Notify someone, because there's people out there that would probably come by and help you out. If there's some other problem, you have junk cars or parking on the street, I think that's a bit more serious. I think maybe that's a tow. If during the winter you're parked on the street and there's snow coming and the plows need to go through, I think maybe that's a tow or a ticket or something. But some of this other stuff, I think a deft touch is better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boscaljon, is the city aggressive enough, too aggressive, or about right in enforcing these ordinances?
As someone who parks his car on the street regularly, I have had my fair share of tickets for parking overnight. So that being said, I think as far as cars being parked overnight, I do think that they are enforcing that and they are keeping that up to date, because every single time I would leave my car on the street, it seems I wake up and there's a ticket. As far as sidewalks being shoveled and grass being mowed, I don't have a lot of experience with that. I always try to keep my sidewalk shoveled and my grass mowed. So, and I think that as Mr. Iverson said, there already is a plan in place for that. I think if there's an habitual person who's continuing to abuse that, then that would be a conversation that we would have at some point with either the person living there, or we would set something else up in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you very much, sir. So when talking about the cars parking on the streets, we already have a program in place. The police who, and one of the first nights when we were not allowed to park on the street, they would hand out warnings. And it was wonderful. Everybody in the city got a warning if you were parked on the street when you were not allowed to park on the street during the winter advisories. And that was a nice reminder that the police, they didn't have to do that. They took that extra step, so massive kudos to them for even doing that. But we do have a ticketing program where if you're parked on the street illegally overnight, you will be cited for it. And you're gonna have to pay the fine, and you're gonna have to remember, hey, don't park on the street because this is gonna affect your wallet. As far as the grass in people's lawns, I can reiterate when my old neighbors, both sides, they went out of state for a little bit, maybe they went on vacation, I would cut their front lawns for them. Or I'd cut all their lawns in their backyard as well, just so their lawn could stay at the length so they didn't get cited or talked to by the city. Again, I go back to the neighborly touch thing, where we're neighbors. We all should be working together and helping each other out. Sometimes there's some underlying issues of why somebody maybe couldn't cut their grass, or maybe something happened where they can't do their, a sidewalk. It takes about 5 minutes with my snowblower to hit their sidewalk. And it helps them out, and it makes life a lot easier for everybody and safer for the people of Ripon, because now they can walk on the sidewalks and not in a slippery road. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you. Okay, our next question will start with Mr. Boscaljon, then Mr. Morrison, and then Mr. Iverson. This is another issue that we've seen a lot about in the media, both social and regular media, and that is whether the city of Ripon should allow ATVs and or UTVs to be driven on city roads. Do you have a position on that issue? And if so, what is your position and why do you hold it?
That is a great question. And I know in speaking with some of the other council members, it wasn't an issue that the previous council felt that they needed to try and tackle. If elected, it's certainly a subject that I would be open to talking about, open to doing the research necessary to see what it would mean to allow ATVs and UTVs on our city streets. What rules that we would want to put into place to help enforce any sort of law or ordinance that we would want to put in place for it. It's certainly a topic that I know a lot of people are talking about. And for me, it's definitely something that I think more research would need to be done to determine what's going to be best for our city going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time, and thank you for the question. I'm glad you guys brought this up, because the last time when I served on council previously, I did bring this to the floor. And I brought it to the floor because the people asked me to. That is our job. When the people ask us to bring something to the floor, we are to discuss it and have conversations about it. But I'd like to go a step further. I would like all of those who support it and those who don't support it, come out here and talk with us. We have open forums for a reason, and that's why we're here. to have these discussions, to see if it makes sense. Would I bring it to the floor? Absolutely. I believe the rest of the county, except for, I think it's Campbellsport, has not passed, Campbellsport has not passed ATV, UTVs. I believe that's the city. I could be wrong. In Ripon, in Fond du Lac County. Almost every other city and every other township has passed it. And I think with the laws that are already in place from the DNR on ATVs, UTVs, it wouldn't be a bad thing to bring in. And it's for some people, getting into a car is pretty tough, or getting into a truck. Some people, ATVs or UTVs, that's what they use, and it's their little cart that they putter around in. And it makes it easier for them, and I understand it. But again, I'd bring it to the floor because the people want it, and that's what I'm gonna do for them, because that's our job. We are the voice for the people, and it is our job to fulfill what the people want us to. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
When I was on the council, so it's at least 4 years ago, I actually was approached, and I brought this to the council as a matter of public record, to vote on ATV, UTV usage. That was voted down. My concerns with it are twofold. One, there's a two-track ticketing scheme. So you could go in your UTV to the bar, get drunk, get pulled over, get cited under DNR regs, and then get in your car, and it starts all over again. You can go back to the bar the next day and get another ticket, and it's two-track. And I find it disturbing. It's not been a problem anyplace else, but I feel that's a problem. But no one else, everybody else has been adopting it, and they don't have a problem with it. The chief of police here, Chief Wallner, said that doesn't seem to be a problem in Ripon. I would be happy to bring it back up. I have at least one person in the district has told me they absolutely do not want ATV, UTV usage in the city. But that's one person. I certainly would listen again. I don't think there's going to be that much usage. But okay, that's not a problem with me. That's a minor thing. And if they want to bring it back and the council would want to vote that through, there's an ordinance all ready to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Another question has been submitted that refers to the fact that in addition to being the birthplace of the Republican Party, Ripon College, the city of Ripon is also a college town with Ripon College right in the middle of the city. Sometimes town-gown relations, as they're called, are strained, but on the other hand, sometimes they're good. What's your opinion of the town-gown relationship between the city of Ripon and Ripon College at the present time? And do you believe it is good as it is, or could it be improved? Mr. Morrison?
So I live actually right next to one of the college parking lots. And I haven't had any issues. Generally, the population of men and women who are coming into our town, they're wonderful people. I haven't run into any issues. They haven't done anything wrong to my property or anything of nature. It's a college. It's what these young kids do. They're growing. They're getting away from home. They're going to get out and try to mold themselves. They want to be independent, and I understand it. But sometimes it's just as simple as a conversation. If something's going on, like, hey, guys, you may want to knock it off, and this is why. People are generally receptive of that. So I like the fact that we have a college community here, as I have a cousin who's getting ready to come to Ripon College next year. I'm very proud of him, and it's a wonderful college. But this college here has grown so many people into many different career paths and produced quality people and quality citizens in our country who have done quite a bit. And I don't think this goes without saying, but Harrison Ford went here. That's pretty cool in and of itself. All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Mr. Iverson. Town-gown relations.
It's ebbed and flowed since I've been here. I remember there was a college student that ran for mayor on the same time that Gary Will ran for mayor, like a dozen years ago, who turned out was involved in pulling fire alarms and stuff, and his fraternity, and getting tickets and getting in trouble, and so that didn't go very well for him. because Gary was elected, because no one's gonna vote for a kid who's pulling firearms. How do you get along with the police department then, huh? Which wasn't apparently a fair question for him, he said. So, I mean, it's ebb and flowed, it comes and goes. I think college students are great here, they add a lot to the city, they spend money here. I go over to the Wilmore House, or the Wilmore Center to walk the track there with my special needs daughter. Use some of the equipment there, the students are very nice and friendly. I just think we have to keep fostering that relationship with them. I know that at times they've come to the city and asked for requests, like block this street off here, make it pedestrian, and the city's has done that for them. But I know that there's been some issues with some of the administrators over at the college recently. Hopefully that's going to be resolved. That's going to be better resolved in the future. So I think, you know, we need the college needs us, and I think we can just keep working together any way we can. I mean, I think one of the places is the football field in Wenceslaw Street there, because the city and the school that owns it, the school district owns it, and the college has an interest, I think they rent the field, are working together to get that grant done so we can get that street. And that's one area that we work together with. So thank you for the question.
Mr. Boscaljon.
As the proud husband of a Ripon College alumna, that's one of the reasons why we came back to Ripon, was because of the college. We actually had our wedding reception at the Great Hall. We live a block away from the school, and I love seeing all the college students walk in front of our house to and from. I also know that the college is getting ready to hire a new president, and I think that that is key for the college to usher in a new era there, and it's also key for us at the city to build a relationship with the new president so that we can continue to grow the relationship that we have between the city and the college. I love the college and I support the college very much, and I'm, again, very proud that the college is here, and my wife graduated from there, and I think it's great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have one final submitted question, so we will direct that first to Mr. Iverson, then to Mr. Boscaljon, and then to Mr. Morrison. And then after that has been answered by each of you, then you will have your 2 minutes, for 1 minute for your closing statement. So let us go to the final question, and that has to do with broadband service. Especially with COVID and with schooling having to be done remotely, as well as employment, businesses running remotely rather than face-to-face, broadband coverage is a major issue. What is your opinion of the current status of broadband coverage in the city of Ripon, and what, if anything, should the city be doing to improve that if it is needed? Mr. Iverson?
Well, thank you. I will say my DSL service through CenturyLink sucks. It comes and goes. Sometimes it's on and it does very good. Sometimes it doesn't. I think it's pitiful. I think it's expensive. I think it's, there's Spectrum, there's CenturyLink, there's cable modems, there's all this. There's no standard, and the state hates it when a city tries to put one in on their own. So that will probably be a big fight with the state. I'm not for certain, but I think it would be, because they like private entities engaged in it, and it's expensive for the city to put it in on its own. So, yes, I think it's pitiful. I think the state ought to do more for providing money for the local communities to increase broadband usage for businesses, for homeowners. Streaming is crazy now. Watch it. I don't know how many times I'm watching a TV show, half definition TV, and see a little circle rotating there while it pauses the spool to get that back up and running. I think it's terrible. So I think it's bad. I think the city can do what they can. I think they need to lobby Joan Ballweg and Alex Dahlman and anybody else who will listen and say, hey, you got to put some of that budget surplus money back into local communities. And that would be one thing that would help with. Thank you.
Mr. Boscaljon?
I think one thing to add to what Mr. Iverson said is especially with COVID, there's a lot of school children that are having to do learning from school. And I know that even within our own community, there are homes in our community that can't afford even DSL. And I think that trying to provide some form of a broadband for our children, for schooling, is something that would be important. I don't know a lot about what Mr. Iverson was saying with the city or in the state, but it's certainly something that I would want to do more research on and try to figure out what we could do as a city to increase our broadband here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time, and thank you very much for the question. A lot of this as well, when you talk about broadband, is a geographical location of Ripon in comparison to where the main hubs and where the internet maybe service providers is coming from. So a lot of that could be, you got to have conversations with them. You got to have conversations with your state leaders, and we got to try to address this in a way that would make sense for the community so it doesn't kill us financially. And we have to kind of put a time frame on it. I think Mr. Iverson's right that it is an issue. I can't tell you how many times, you lose your internet. It happens though. I mean, I think that's something that we all pretty much have a luxury of, but we've never had we've never had an issue such as COVID happened before, where everybody, literally everybody was at home on the internet. So everybody was trying to get on at the same time. You can imagine that's just like a clogged highway. Everybody's trying to get on, it's gonna be tough. So we're gonna have to work with the city, we're gonna have to work with the state, we're gonna have to work with the internet providers, and we're gonna have to do what we can to get a better access for everybody. And that's, again, that just starts with simple conversations, and I will be the one to start those simple conversations with the state for you and our representatives.
All right. Thank you very much. That concludes our submitted questions. And so now we will go to the final statement. We'll begin with Mr. Boscaljon, followed by Mr. Morrison, followed by Mr. Iverson. 1 minute final statement.
I wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum tonight, and I appreciate all the questions that were asked. I look forward to serving this community and serving this great city on City Council. Thank you very much.
So to the League of Women Voters, again, thank you very much for this forum. Thank you for this opportunity for all three of us to be able to sit here and speak to the great people of Ripon. To you two fine gentlemen sitting here with us tonight, thank you guys very much for being here. To the people of Ripon, I have worked hard for you previously, and I will continue to do so again. I will be that voice. I will not stop until we do what is necessary. If you call me for a job and you ask me to look into something, I will do it. And that's my job, and that's what I will do, and I promise you I will maintain that always. Thank you guys very much. You all have a wonderful night, and God bless each and every single one of you.
Mr. Iverson.
I've done this for 4 years before. I understand the issues. I learn all the time. I spent countless hours with the former city administrator learning the budget. I've been all this before. I'll do it again for you. I've walked the district a number of times, knocking on doors. And if you have any questions, my number is 920-509-4618. 920-509-4618. Leave your name, call me. If my voicemail is full, my email is ripondug, RIPONDOUG @gmail.com. Please email me with your name, number, and address. I will try to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Ripon area, I'd like to thank all three of our candidates for appearing tonight. Those of you who live in District 4, the choice will be yours. I hope you followed our forum closely this evening so that you could get a good feel for the candidates, their positions, their personalities, their character, and the other things that will influence your vote. If you live in District 4, the date for that primary election to vote for one of these three for the aldermanic position, that primary election will be on Tuesday, February 15th. Then the top two finishers in this district will advance to the general election on Tuesday, April 5th. With that, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I thank you very much for tuning in this evening, and please remember to be sure to vote. That is our most sacred right and duty as American citizens. Thank you and good evening. Excellent job, all of you.